And we're starting with this. Prince Harry is in London now to attend his grandfather, Prince Philip's funeral. And his wife, Meghan, is not with him, apparently on doctor's orders to stay home because of her pregnancy. So it is Harry's first trip back since the two stepped back from their royal duties. And of course, it's the first time being back since that bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. So, Ed, do you think this is going to help mend fences within the family?
Well, I love that you threw to me. Let's talk to Canadian rock royalty about the royal family. It's a great idea. It's a great segue. I love it. So, I don't know. A lot has been said about the fact that Meghan is pregnant, and that's why she's not flying over. Little has been made of the few things that were mentioned on her chat with Oprah. Could be that. I actually met the Queen and Prince Philip years ago when BNL played on Parliament Hill. Then Prime Minister Stephen Harper introduced the Queen to me and said, Your Majesty, this is Ed Robertson, the lead singer of Bare Naked Ladies. And she said, what is the origin of the name? And I said, well, Your Majesty, I believe Robertson is Scottish in origin. And she said, not that one. She moved along. Prince Philip came over. There was fireworks going off and cannons firing. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't hear you over all this blasted racket. And I said, well, Prince Philip, the sound you're hearing is actually, we're executing the Canada Day prisoners now on the lawn out there. And he said, oh, that's marvelous. So that was my meeting.
Wow.
Dead.
Boy, that's a great story, Ed. That is really great.
Right?
I was going to say, that is so Prince Philip, because he's kind of always been the reluctant royal in many ways. I don't know that he got into this family thinking that his life was going to turn out quite the way that it did. And he was always the one known for kind of having those moments, awkward, sometimes gaffes. But you know what? He didn't care. He didn't seem like he cared anyway. But you know what? For me, when we go back to the Meghan part of this story, I think that this is going to be a chance, and I actually really believe, for William and Harry in particular, to mend those fences, as you asked off the top there, Cynthia. The fact that Harry is going without Meghan because her doctors have said for her to stay home because she's in the latter stages of her pregnancy, I think that's actually going to turn out to be a really great thing for Harry. He is going to be going back to London for the first time in over a year. And I think he's going to get really nostalgic. I think the smells, the feels, this is his homeland. He hasn't been there in so long. He's going to be missing, I suspect, so much of what his life was like beforehand. And I think that, don't forget the passing of Prince Philip. I think it's about Prince Philip, but I also think this is a reminder to the whole Windsor family of the eventual passing of the Queen. And I think the family has to decide if they're going to face the future united or divided.
I think that is certainly the hope, and it's a beautiful hope, Mel, of course, that family can heal and reconcile. I don't wish otherwise. I just think, realistically speaking, there are a lot of open wounds that are probably not going to be completely mended after a week. And especially when you consider, Prince Harry and Prince William just released their statements today. And in Prince Harry's statement, he ended with Per Mare Per Terram, which is the motto of the Royal Marines. And this is his connection with his grandfather. They both served active military duty. As we've seen, Prince Harry has been very committed to military service. And the thing is that a few weeks ago, when it was confirmed permanently that Harry and Meghan would not be returning to the royal family as senior members, he was stripped of his royal titles, which means that on an occasion that would mean very much to him to be dressed in military attire to honor his grandfather, who he succeeded as Captain General of the Royal Marines in 2017, he will not be in regalia. And these are the small little things that have added up over the course of these years that have led to this big rift. And of course, you throw the press on top of that. Like, are they going to shame him? Don't put it past press, the British tabloid press, for shaming him for not being able to wear his his uniform. And then on top of that,
they would have thought about some of this though beforehand, Lainey? Like they knew eventually the Queen would have passed. They knew eventually they had to go back.
It's a great question, Cynthia. It's a great question. And now it's been reported today that, from the Sunday Times, that Prince Harry will not be in military uniform because of that decision. So these are all things like, where are they going to seat him? I get it, Mel. Obviously, nobody wants a family to be fractured, but we have to watch, because on the day of the funeral, if he's way in the nosebleeds, if he's way in the back, then we know. We know that.
Well, no.
They're not going to do that.
I think it's going to work in his favor. There's only going to be 30 people there, maybe less. The fact that it's not a public occasion, although it will be filmed for all of us to see, I think that actually works in Harry and William's favor, because instead of news cameras going back and forth, trying to read body language, everybody trying to decipher whose body language says what, this is going to be a very controlled shot and feed of what will be a largely private ceremony. We actually won't get to see, I think, a lot of those interactions that we're dying to see.
We might not get to see them, but I think the press and all of us are it's the only thing we're thinking about. Like, I think without the press, amending might be possible. Think about it. It's really relatable. When families have a rift, they often get together and heal at times, when they lose one of their own at a funeral. But this is all anyone's talking about. If you think about it, there's already 1,000 think pieces about what will happen. Will this help mend the royal family rift? That is pressure. Like, I have performance anxiety just thinking about it.
This is nothing.
I just hope that they never.
When you put this in context of the royal family, we're talking about interactions between family members that used to feature beheadings. So a little squabble in an Oprah interview, like, really, they'll brush this off and move on. They're brothers. They'll get over it. Nobody's going to be beheaded in the courtyard. This is fine.
The Rizatsin.
I agree, and I think they will get over it. The media might not, because this is delicious. They're waiting. Yes. They're going to make a lot out of Meghan not being there, so it will be propelled onwards. But I think that they have this classic stiff British upper lip. So I think anything that would be happening, even if there is tensions, is going to be happening safely behind doors. Yes. All I can think of is, like, obviously still 50% of marriages end in divorce. And the royal family has been touched by divorce. I think the next phase of things, like, let's just hope Harry and Meghan stay together, because I can't imagine what it would look like if he ever had to return home on a permanent basis and not be a member of the royal family.
That's a good point, Cynthia. And that's probably what makes me really uncomfortable with, even if the press decides to go positive on this in Britain, it's going to be like Harry's home by himself. He's not being joined by that evil witch anymore, and we can get him and we can remind him of how much he misses this place. And when he's not with her, look how wonderful it all is. Look at what all the nice things that can happen. The family can reunite as long as that woman stays behind. It makes me uncomfortable, not just on a royal sense, but having witnessed many people, including my mother, be ostracized by the male's family, and like a chasm being created because family members attack the woman in a relationship and she's not the blood royal. Already, I'm feeling for her with that possible narrative emerging, and it makes me really uncomfortable.
Well, they also have to think about July 1st, because Harry and maybe also Meghan returning back to London for the commemoration of the Princess Di statue. So we shall see. It ain't over.